Hey, what's going on, guys? Good morning, everybody. What's happening, YouTube? It is Tuesday, November 15th, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about this FTX, Sam Bankman-Fried, Caroline, Alameda Capital saga. We're going to be talking a little bit about the story itself, what's been happening, where we're at now. But more than anything, one of the things I wanted to get into was like, what does this mean for the future of cryptocurrency? Is this going to change how people... is this going to fundamentally change the crypto space? Are people no longer going to use centralized exchanges? Are people done with like DeFi platforms? Is everybody going to start storing their crypto on hardware wallets like Trezors, Ledgers, Keep Keys? Or will this soon be forgotten about, and will everybody kind of go back to doing things how they did them before? Will people regain trust in exchanges? The situation is moving so fast that, from what we're hearing, supposedly outside a group of about 10 insiders, including Sam Bankman-Fried, Caroline, and like 8 or 10 of their, insider friends at FTX, who were all in some weird, strange, polyamorous relationship having nerd sex orgies. Outside of them, even people at FTX seem to be kind of in the dark about what's going on, really confused about this how this happened. CZ of Binance doesn't seem to know what's going on, although we are starting to hear more that like more people really into the crypto space kind of knew what was going on and had an inkling that this was happening. That's kind of why CZ eventually sold his FTT tokens, which kind of spurred this whole run. One other kind of really interesting aspect of this story, and it'll be interesting as we learn more, but it could wind up turning out that this entire FTX as a company was nothing more than a money laundering scheme to get money over to Ukraine to then be kicked back to Joe Biden and the Democratic Party. Sam Bankman-Fried was the second largest donor to Democrats in the recent midterms, and he had been very vocal and had promised to donate $1 billion to Biden's 2024 re-election campaign. And one kind of crazy thing to think about, we hadn't gotten to that point. He hadn't donated the $1 billion to Biden. But if you look at, say the average person has $2,000 in crypto. $2,000 isn't, in the grand scheme of things, it isn't a ton of money, but at the same time, it isn't chump change, right? And especially at a time when Americans are struggling, inflation is crazy. Depending on who you listen to, we're either in a recession or we're heading into a really bad recession. $2,000 could go a long way. That could be potentially 4 or 5 months worth of groceries if you're really being frugal and trying to save money. I mean, it's not chump change. It's a significant amount of money. And if SBF were to have donated $1 billion to Biden, $1 billion divided by $2,000 is, I believe that's 500,000. Potentially he ruined obviously he ruined millions of people's lives, but potentially he really, really fucked 500,000 people, 500,000 people. He potentially, for some people that might be their life savings. He potentially fucked over 500,000 people to make sure Joe Biden got elected in 2024. I know a lot of people are pointing out, well, FTX gave money to the Republicans as well. Both parties are corrupt. I don't doubt that. But if you look at the amount of money, Sam Bankman-Fried was the second biggest donor to the Democrats in 2022 behind George Soros. I believe he donated, I want to say it was $180 or $190 million. When you compare that to one of his co-founders or somebody else at FTX had given $20 million to the Republicans. Well, if you're lobbying, you don't want to make enemies on either side. Even if you favor one side, you're going to give a little bit of money to both sides, and especially considering that everybody was expecting a red wave in the midterms, you don't want to give all your money to Democrats, piss off the Republicans, and then the Republicans wind up being the ones in control and making legislation. Kind of going back to this Ukraine money laundering scandal with FTX, a couple interesting things about this. Sam Bankman-Fried's mother, I believe her name's Barbara Fried, she runs a couple of these CPACs and Get Out the Vote organizations. She's a Democratic campaign bundler or money bundler. And it's kind of weird how like Sam Bankman-Fried comes out of nowhere in 2019, starts FTX, becomes the youngest billionaire under 30. His co-founder, his buddy, is a guy, I think his name might be Gary Wang. I forget his first name, but there's a guy by the name of Wang. I believe he comes from Sequoia Capital. I don't know if they've taken down his picture and bio yet, but it's funny, on the Sequoia Capital website, everybody has these really, really clean close-up headshots, and when you get to this Wang character, it's literally a picture of the back of his head as he's sitting at a computer. Like, like, does this guy even exist? There's another gentleman out there by the name of Dan Friedman, who I believe was like some type of head of regulation at FTX, or regulatory head at FTX. This guy was involved in the ultimate poker scandal from, what was that, back in the either late 90s or early 2000s, maybe even as far back as 2010 or so. But basically this poker site was, using God mode. They were looking at players' cards and then playing against their own players, knowing what they had. How he didn't go to prison for this, I don't know. How he didn't lose his law license, I don't know. How he went on to become the regulatory head of FTX, very odd. Some other weird connections. If we look at Caroline Ellison, it could be her father or her uncle. I'm kind of having a brain fart right now, but I believe it was her father. Her father was the former boss of Gensler, the current head of the FTC. We know that Gensler was kind of illegally giving preferential or favorable treatment to FTX. Sam Bankman-Fried was obviously spending a lot of time in Washington. He was kind of making a big push for regulation. And one thing that's kind of interesting, it's oftentimes the people who are the loudest and most vocal about making sure everybody acts right in regulation are oftentimes the biggest con men themselves. How did nobody see through this? How did no politicians see through this? How did regulators not see through this? Well, we've learned that FTX maybe had $900 million out of the $10 billion that they were supposed to have. What else have we learned? We've learned that pretty much we've learned that Sam Bankman-Fried and FTX were likely behind most of the major hacks and crashes of this past year. They were responsible for the Luna debacle, which took down Celsius. They were reportedly the ones who kind of hacked the Binance bridge and caused that whole thing. The situation keeps getting weirder and weirder. Trying to think if there's any other like weird connections. Sam Bankman-Fried's father, I believe he's a lawyer and a professor at Stanford. I don't know if he consults with the U.S. government or if he used to be with the IRS, but he used to be in a position where he was kind of part of making laws and regulations around taxes. He's a very, very well-connected guy, and one of the things, and his aunt is a member of the WEF, the World Economic Foundation. His aunt was part of that. FTX was listed on the WEF website as being a WEF company. They've taken that down and scrubbed that from their website. Apparently stuff about this Dan Friedman keeps getting scrubbed off the internet as well. One interesting thing about this whole saga is, in the past, most of the crypto scams, who's gotten caught up in them, right? It's been teenagers, it's been young adults, it's been middle-class millennials. If you look at BitConnect and things like that, right? Like, there were no big people involved. There were no big corporations involved. But with FTX, I mean, you have the Ontario, Canada Teachers Pension Fund was invested in FTX. You had BlackRock invested in FTX. You had SoftBank invested in FTX. Reportedly, Tom Brady and Gisele Bündchen had a significant portion of their net worth tied up in FTX. You typically don't wind up getting in trouble or going to prison for fleecing normal, everyday people. You get in trouble for fleecing connected people, rich people, elite people, and billionaires. And if you look at what was her name? Not Elizabeth Shue, that's an actress. The pharma girl, who had that like scam company with testing blood for diseases or whatever. She recently got sentenced to prison, and she was actually found, I believe, innocent of defrauding her customers but guilty of defrauding investors. How can you be innocent of one and not the other? But it basically goes to show that you only wind up getting in trouble if you fuck over billionaires. I think a lot of regulation is going to be coming to the crypto space. And one interesting thing, if you look at it and think about it, and I'm not necessarily a fan of the government, I think the government does more harm than good. I think they should stay out of things as much as possible. But the government does like to regulate things and protect people from themselves. I personally don't think the government needs to be in a position of protecting people from themselves. But if you look at all the regulation that has come into the crypto space, none of it has been about protecting consumers. All of the regulation has had to do with either money laundering and or KYC, right? So they want exchanges to know their customers. They want socials. They want occupations. They want addresses. They want EIN numbers. They want to make sure that you can't make any money without them getting their cut. And, fair enough, whatever, that's what the government does. But it's interesting that none of the regulation has anything to do with protecting consumers, and all of the regulation has to do with making sure that the government gets their cut of the money. So I think that's very telling and very interesting. We've heard a lot of rumors about SBF. Initially, I think it was on Saturday morning once all this stuff kind of started breaking. We had heard rumors that he was on a plane on his way to Argentina or Venezuela. I think that turned out to be false. Then we heard that he was arrested on a tarmac in the Bahamas. We've heard that he's trying to flee to Switzerland. Now it's come out that he and Caroline and the insiders are trying to flee to either Dubai or the UAE. Here's kind of how I think things are going to wind up playing out. So Sam Bankman-Fried, I don't even, there's certain words you can't say on YouTube without getting your video shadow banned. He's of a certain faith. And so basically anybody who's, I'm just going to come out and kind of say how it is. So anybody who's Jewish can get an Israeli passport. Israel has a reputation for not extraditing people. There have been a number of instances where pedophiles have fled to Israel, and Israel won't extradite them. Israel protects them. So if Israel is willing to protect kid touchers, I would imagine that most people view financial crimes as less serious or less bad than being a kid toucher. I would at least hope so, right? So if Sam Bankman-Fried can flee to Israel, he potentially escapes the long arm of the law. He escapes the U.S. government. So if Sam Bankman-Fried is not in custody with Bahamian authorities, or if he's not immediately brought back to the U.S., I think Sam Bankman-Fried will likely flee to Israel and probably wind up facing no jail time and no prosecution from this. Let's see, I guess kind of now that we've covered kind of a lot of that stuff, I think in the coming weeks, coming days, coming months, we're going to see a lot more exchanges crash. One thing that we've been seeing recently is all of these exchanges after Binance's CEO, CZ, with Chen Jinping, declared that exchanges should show how much they have in reserves. We're starting to see exchanges come out and say, oh, we have this much Bitcoin, this much Ethereum, this much of other coins. But there's a lot of weird movements of exchange wallets between exchanges. So what a lot of people are speculating is going on right now is all these exchanges are teaming up and basically sharing money so that each of them can show a large balance. So, I don't know that any of these exchanges are insolvent. I'm just, pulling these out of a hat. But let's say KuCoin needs to show that they have a couple $2 billion in reserves. Well, let's have Crypto.com and Huboy and a bunch of other exchanges each send them $500 million, take a snapshot, and then they'll return the money. Next, Crypto.com has to show they have money in reserves. So everybody teams up and sends money over to Crypto.com. They take a snapshot. Also, these snapshots are kind of meaningless if we don't know how much these companies have in liabilities or how much they have in debt. But I guess it's at least good to see that they have some money. Just to kind of play devil's advocate, your bank doesn't have to have any of the money that you give them either. In years past, I believe banks had to have like 10% or 20% of the money that they took in, and they could invest or lend out the rest. I believe that law was changed a couple years ago, and now you can give your bank $200,000, your life savings, and they can either invest or lend out all of that. They have to keep zero liquid or zero in their own possession. So in some ways, like is FTX, are these crypto exchanges doing anything that the banks or even the U.S. government, right? The U.S. government is not on a gold standard. We print more money than we bring in taxes. We print more money than we have. So, FTX and these exchanges are kind of playing the same shell games that big major banks and even the U.S. government does, but they're not part of the insiders club yet, so they're not allowed to play those games. What'll be interesting to see is how this changes how people interact with the crypto space. First off, is crypto dead? Has everybody lost trust in crypto? I guess we got the halving in 500 days from now or something like that. The halving is going to be in, somewhere between April and June in 2024. I believe it's 2024. So, we're likely going to be in a bear market. Crypto is either going to continue going down or will likely trade sideways until we start getting closer to the halving. One of the things that's kind of different with crypto now than in 2017, like back in 2017, there were few to no opportunities to stake or lend. CryptoKitties was out, but there really weren't NFTs. Like back then, the name of the game with crypto was basically buy and hold. There wasn't much else that you could do with cryptocurrency. Today, however, you can lend, you can stake. So, there's not really an opportunity cost of sitting on crypto. If when Bitcoin was at 20,000 in 2017 and then it crashed down to 5,000, if you're sitting on Bitcoin, you're not making any money off of it, right? You're just sitting waiting for it to come back, and there's opportunity cost with doing that. So one of the things that I thought might make crashes not as bad or even prevent crashes was the fact that you could stake, the fact that you could lend, the fact that you could earn income on your crypto meant that even if you wound up having to just sit in the market during a down period or during a bear market, at the very least, you're going to be earning interest, you're going to continue stacking, and when crypto eventually comes back, you're going to wind up having more than when you started with. Well, now, nobody trusts any of these staking platforms, nobody trusts any of these lending platforms, nobody trusts any of these stable coins. It's almost like we're reverting back to a time when crypto was more like Satoshi's vision, which was a peer-to-peer currency, right? First and foremost, that's what it was. What made crypto grow, people kind of hate to focus on the past of crypto, but drug marketplaces, darknet marketplaces like the Silk Road, like Alphabay, like Agora. I mean, that was a use case for crypto, was buying drugs online, right? Visa or MasterCard, Stripe or PayPal would never allow you to set up a website and sell drugs. But when everybody's their own bank, when we take Visa and MasterCard and all the middlemen out of the equation, now you can do things like that. And so I think first and foremost, that's what crypto was intended to be. That's what crypto should be. And we've kind of gotten away from crypto being a means of exchange or being a peer-to-peer currency. And it's become DeFi platforms and monkey pictures and a lot of other kind of crazy stuff. I don't think people are going to trust a lot of third parties, a lot of exchanges, a lot of platforms for a while. Eventually, I do think people will forget about all of this and get back into it. I mean, if you think about it, people invested in BitConnect. We learned that BitConnect was a scam. People said, I'm never going to do that again. And then kind of we have the wave of popularity with DeFi platforms and lending and Celsius and BlockFi, and people get all back into this stuff. One thing I think was a lot different about crypto back in the day was, if you got involved with crypto in 2013, 2014, 2015, even leading up to the 2017 bull rush, it wasn't nearly as mainstream. I think if you got into crypto, we all get into crypto for the money, but I think you at least had some appreciation for the technology. I think you wanted to learn about the space. And once, Dogecoin and Shiba and all these coins went crazy, once Mark Cuban and Elon got into the crypto space, it brought in a lot of normies, it brought in a lot of new people, and it brought in a lot of the type of people who are just going to buy their crypto off Robinhood or PayPal, or Coinbase. And I'm guessing a significant portion of people in crypto have never moved their money off of an exchange. They've never set up a wallet. They've never sent money. They've never used a hardware wallet. Like, people kind of casually get into the space, but they don't actually know how to do anything or know how the space works, and nor do they have really any interest in kind of learning about the space. So I think crypto is very, very different in that way. I saw a lot of people questioning, like, are a lot more people going to start using cold wallets or hardware wallets like Trezors and Ledgers? There's a bit of there's multiple steps involved in getting a hardware wallet. First, you have to order it, right? And you can't really trust ordering it from a third party like eBay or Amazon. or some random person Shopify store. You want to get it straight from the source. So if you're buying the Trezor, it's been years since I bought mine. When I bought mine, it shipped from like the Czech Republic. So first off, I have to go on and buy it. It cost me $100, $130, whatever it was. So I got to shell out some money for it. And one thing you've oftentimes heard people say is like, how much crypto do I have to have before it's worth buying a hardware wallet? So a lot of people aren't wanting to shell out the money. I think the wallets are sold out right now, and over the years there have been various periods of time where they're sold out. It ships internationally, so you got to wait a few days to get it. There's somewhat of a learning curve in learning how to use it. You got to download a desktop application for either the Trezor or Ledger to be able to use it. There's a lot of steps involved. And I think the main thing that's going to get people off of crypto is freaking out and thinking they're about to lose their crypto. So if I hear that, crypto.com may be insolvent and I'm going to rush to get my money off crypto.com, I'm probably not going to order a Trezor from the Czech Republic, wait for it to arrive, figure out how to use it, and then move my money off. I'm probably going to do something like download Trust Wallet and immediately send my money over to Trust Wallet. And so I think Trust Wallet will wind up being the next big wallet. I think we'll probably see a lot more innovation where things are much more easier to use, and people will be able to store their crypto on their Trezor or Ledger or even a Trust Wallet and trade from directly in the wallet. So there's a very minimum amount of time that your crypto is not in your control. And I think there's ways of doing that already, but unless you're kind of a sophisticated person in crypto, you probably don't know how to do that. We'll see if DeFi platforms wind up getting big, although they're still not really user-friendly enough for your average person who just got into crypto to use. I guess one thing, I think crypto was inevitably going to fall, right? I talked about how after the midterms, the economic crash was really going to start. The layoffs were really going to start. The media and the White House and the Fed were going to finally admit that we're in a recession, as opposed to saying we might be in a recession in 2023. What Facebook just announced, first they announced the hiring freeze, then they announced that they're laying off 10,000 employees. Yesterday, Amazon announced that they're laying off 10,000 employees. FedEx is furloughing truck drivers, which means that they're basically sending them home. We don't need you. We don't have enough stuff to move, and that's kind of a leading indicator, right? Like if FedEx, normally this time of the season is a time when more packages than ever are moving, and normally these companies can't keep up with demand. And FedEx is actually furloughing workers because they don't have enough work for people. What does that tell you? Well, that tells me that people aren't shipping things, business isn't being done, people aren't buying things for the holidays, companies aren't preparing for the holidays. So things are about to get ugly. Make no mistake. I've seen a bunch of tweets go out where Twitter laid off 50% of employees, Intel laid off 20% of employees, Facebook laid off 10,000 employees, Amazon 10,000 employees. The layoffs are starting to come fast and heavy. The layoffs are starting to expand beyond tech, beyond real estate, beyond mortgages. It's starting to hit normal companies that aren't in those spaces. Things are going to start getting ugly, and I think even if these recent events hadn't driven crypto lower, as people needed that crypto, I guess as the stock market goes down, crypto is going to go down. Also, as people need money to keep up with inflation for the holidays because they lost their jobs, people would wind up starting to sell off crypto. That would bring the market down further. This just kind of spurred along what was inevitable anyways, although I'm sure it drove things lower. And, I think by the time this winter is over, the recession is in the full swing of things. Many people have been laid off. I think once we get to that point, you're probably going to see Bitcoin between, say, $8,000 and $12,000. Right now, Ethereum is sitting at, I know it's over 1,000, was $1,100-1,200. I think we could probably see Ethereum somewhere between $400 and $700. I think things are going to get pretty ugly. What's your guys' kind of opinion of crypto right now? Have you been scared away from the space? Are you uninterested in the space? Do you view everything as a complete scam? Do you think this is a good time to buy and continue to stack? How do you think this whole situation with SBF and Caroline and FTX is going to play out? What other exchanges are going to go down? What other platforms are going to go down? I talked about this in a video the other day. But one really interesting thing about this, right? It's one thing if crypto fucks people involved in crypto and if crypto fucks companies involved in the crypto space. But what we're kind of seeing with this recent FTX debacle is, Sam Bankman-Fried was essentially able to buy a 7% stake in Robinhood with monopoly money created out of thin air. The day after all this news came out, Robinhood stock tanked 15 or 20%, both because some people expected Sam Bankman-Fried to buy Robinhood, and also people realized that he was going to have to sell off his position. So now, BlackRock was involved, SoftBank was involved, pension funds are involved. We're starting to see, stable coins and exchange coins and fake crypto money, monopoly crypto money, is starting to affect the regular economy, right? That's how regulators are going to rush in here. Also, potentially it's affecting elections, right? Like this whole FTX thing could have been some big money laundering scheme for the Democratic Party. And now crypto potentially has the potential to shape elections, to shape who our political leaders are. I mean, the whole thing is nuts. So it'll be interesting to see how everything plays out. Just wanted to get a video out there, just kind of rambling and kind of talking about this situation. I'm sure there's a lot of stuff I haven't covered. Every video like this that gets put out is pretty much outdated by the time it comes out because this story is moving so fast. If there's anything that I left out, if there's anything you want to add, go ahead and drop a comment down below. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed to the channel, click that subscribe button down below and ring the bell. And I guess that's all I got. I'll catch you guys on the next video.